Telephone Tales by Gianni Rodari, illustrated by Valerio Vidali. The Road to Nowhere. At the edge of town there was a fork in the road. One road went down toward the sea, the other went toward the city, and the third led nowhere at all. Martino knew this because he'd asked just about everyone, and everyone had given him the same reply. That third road, it doesn't go anywhere. It's pointless to take it. But how far does it go? It doesn't go anywhere. Then why did they build it? Nobody built it. It's always been there. But hasn't anybody ever taken it to see where it goes? You sure are hard-headed. We just told you there's nothing worth seeing. But how can you be sure if you've never taken it? He was so obstinate that people started calling him Martino Hardhead. But he didn't mind. He just kept thinking about that road that went nowhere. When he was old enough to cross the street without holding his grandfather's hand, he got up early one morning, left the town, and without a moment's hesitation, set off down the mysterious road and kept right on going. The surface was riddled with potholes and weeds, but luckily it hadn't rained in quite a while, so there were no puddles. A hedge extended along both sides of the road. But soon the woods began. The tree branches intertwined overhead, creating a cool, dark corridor, penetrated by the occasional shaft of sunlight which lit his way. Martino walked and walked. The tunnel went on, and the road, too, went on and on. His feet were starting to ache. He was already wondering if he shouldn't turn back, when he saw a dog. Where there's a dog, there's a house, Martino told himself. Or at least a person. The dog ran toward him, wagging its tail and licking Martino's hands. Then it turned and headed off down the road, turning around every so often to make sure that Martino was still following. I'm coming, Martino called out, his curiosity piqued. At last, the forest started to thin out. The sky could be seen high above, and the road came to an end at the threshold of a large wrought iron gate. Through the bars, Martino glimpsed a castle, with all its doors and windows thrown wide open. Smoke plumed up out of all the chimneys, and from a high balcony, a lovely lady was waving to him, and crying cheerfully, "Come in! Come right in, Martino Hardhead!" Well, Martino told himself cheerfully. I never knew I'd get here, but I certainly did. He pushed open the gate, strode across the grounds, and walked into the great room of the castle just in time to make a deep bow to the lovely lady as she descended the monumental staircase. She was beautiful, and she was dressed even better than fairies and princesses. What's more, she was quite cheerful, and she laughed as she said, "So, you didn't believe it." Didn't believe what? What everyone told you about the road going nowhere. It just made no sense. And if you ask me, there are even more places in the world than there are roads. Of course there are, as long as you're willing to get up and go see them. Come on in. Let me show you around the castle. There were more than 100 drawing rooms, all packed with treasures of every kind. Like those castles in fairy tales where sleeping beauties slumber, or ogres pile up riches. There were diamonds, precious gems, gold and silver. And the whole time, the lovely lady kept saying, "Take what you want. Take whatever you want. I'll lend you a cart to take it home. It will be so heavy." As you can imagine, Martino didn't have to be told twice. The cart was piled high when he finally left. Sitting with paws around the reins was the dog, who was well trained and knew how to jerk the reins and bark at the horses when they dozed and wandered off the road. Back in town, where he'd already been given up for dead, Martino Hardhead was greeted with immense astonishment. The dog unloaded all Martino's treasures in the town square, wagged its tail twice in farewell, climbed back onto the cart, and drove off in a cloud of dust. Martino gave generous gifts to one and all, both friends and enemies, and was made to tell the tale of his adventure 100 times over. Every time he finished the story, another member of his audience would hurry home, get out a cart and horse, and rush off down the road that led nowhere. But that same evening, they all came trailing back, one after the other, with long faces and crushed spirits. For them, the road ended in the middle of the forest, smack up against a dense wall of trees in a sea of thorns. There was no more gate, no more castle, no lovely lady, because certain treasures are there only for the first to blaze a new trail, and the first had been Martino Hardhead.